Hey everybody, I'm back here with Harrison from Precision Ingenuity. And I brought him on because the Carabiner saga has become so complicated and so convoluted that I needed to talk it through with somebody.
Well, I hope I can do you justice.
These carabiners, this whole carabiner saga started when I released a product called the Orange Slice, which I'll
hmm
do a screenshot when I edit this. Um, it the Orange Slice is just a simple little keychain thingy that if you're one of those people that has a bunch of keychains and key rings and flashlights on your keys, it just keeps them from getting tangled.
I like it.
It
I
is
think it's a really cool design.
Yeah, I made one. I think it was just like a test project on my Sherline mill back when I had that, and people liked it, and so I just started making them. Now, when I started selling those on Etsy, I was like, this isn't really this needs accessories to go with it. And so from AliExpress, I bought a couple different carabiners and like key rings and that kind of thing. And I started selling those basically as a way to make the Orange Slice more buyable, like to make that experience better for the customer. And then the titanium carabiners that I bought as an accessory started selling like hotcakes. Like I sold like 150 of those things or something like that. And I buy them for like $4, depending on my lot size, but between $3 and $4 from China. And I sell them for, I started selling them for like $6 and moved it up to I think $8 or something. So they're not a super high value product, but I sell a surprising amount of them. And like more than anything, it helps my store and like the Etsy algorithm because Etsy sees that I have a lot of sales, so they're more inclined to show my store to people. And I mean, I guess it's some amount of income, but more than anything, it's just like I'm getting good reviews on Etsy, like they're easy. It helps me sell more things. And sometimes people who buy a carabiner come back and buy a tray, which I have a good margin on.
Okay. Now for your carabiners, do you include free shipping with that? Just out of curiosity.
For anything smaller than $20 in my store, I do not do free shipping.
Okay. Cool.
So I am actually making the like $5 off of them or $4 off of them.
Okay. No, I was just curious. All right, keep going. We'll see more of the story.
So okay, so I had those selling on Etsy, and like I had a hard time keeping them in stock, so I just kept buying more and more and more of them. Then I started doing the pry bar Kickstarter, and with the pry bars, since the user can customize them to whatever size they want, like some people are going to be buying them as a keychain thing. Some people are going to be buying them as like a toolbox tool. But I gave people the option of adding on either a keyring or a keyring and a carabiner,
Okay.
thinking, I'll sell a few of them. It'll make somebody's life easier. And I had like 10 in stock when I started the campaign, and like I sold off a few through Etsy as the campaign was going. But then towards the end of the campaign, I went started looking at my numbers of how many I sold. And I sold a bunch of them. I sold like 40 or 45 of them through Kickstarter. I missed this earlier, but at the beginning of the campaign, I also ordered 25, thinking that I would have some left over at the end of the campaign. So then in the middle of the campaign, I ordered like 35 more, which would have covered all of the orders that I had. So then the campaign ended, some carabiners came in the mail and we moved. And so, there was like a time delay between ordering the carabiners and the end of the Kickstarter and like fulfilling. And
hmm
I went to start shipping pry bars, and I realized that one of my shipments of carabiners never showed up.
Ah,
I don't remember what the tracking said, but according to the tracking, they just didn't get here and they're just lost in the mail ether.
that's annoying.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh no, I need to order more. And so like as soon as I figured that out, I ordered another batch from Etsy or from AliExpress.
hmm
And I was like, okay, cool. I got those coming. And then I looked at the tracking and it was like 3 months out or something. And I was like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So then I immediately ordered another batch from a different seller with expedited shipping.
hmm
So at this point, I've ordered these carabiners 3 times, and I've spent like, I don't know, at this point, I'm at like $200 or $250 of carabiners in. Then the expedited shipping. So then, like a week or two later, the expedited ones came up as undeliverable, whatever that means, and so they just disappeared.
And the seller is not going to do anything to help rectify the issue.
I haven't contacted them yet. I mean they'll probably refund me, but like
Yeah.
I promised to ship pry bars with carabiners.
At that point, your issue is not the money so much as it is the commitment to your customer.
Yes. Yeah. So I still had the ones that were, on the slow boat coming. Like I was able to ship all, but I think right now I have 4 pry bars left that I haven't been able to ship because of carabiner. So like I'm so close. And I
Hmm.
was like, well, I mean, like I'm an engineer, I have tools, I have equipment, I can make these. So I work in a sheet metal shop for a living. Like I'm familiar
Hmm.
with design for laser cutters and water jets, and like
Yep.
I can send this out to send and get them made. But like I still was also kind of hoping that the other ones would show up. And so I waited another week and was like, oh no, okay, these carabiners are not going to show up. I need to make them. At that point, it had been so long. It's like, well, I don't want to wait another week for send. So I'm just going to make these on the mill. And so I it took me like 3 days to design and do the cam and make the fixture for these. And this is going to actually, like, I'm about to publish my first video on that saga. Since my videos are so short, none of them will cover the whole story,
Hmm.
and like that's why I wanted to do this episode. But all right,
Yeah.
so I've designed and made these ones on my mill. I have titanium on the way. It actually went really smoothly
Hmm.
to make the first prototypes. I shared them on Instagram, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, these are the most amazing things ever!" I got such a good reactions from those, and I was really happy to see that. And then I got a notification from AliExpress that my carabiners had been delivered. Except, remember, I ordered these before I moved.
Yeah. So they went to the old location.
So they went to the old location, which is like an hour and a half away,
Okay.
and the new owners have taken possession of the property. They have not moved in yet. And so my wife was already kind of down in that area. It's like an hour 20 minutes away. And I was like, hey, head over there and pick them up. And I sent a text to the new owners, and they were like, yeah, sure, go get them. And they weren't there.
Oh no.
So
Were they just left on the front porch, or do you
I,
know?
it, they would have come USPS, and
Okay.
so like there's no Amazon where they take a picture of it.
Oh no.
But because AliExpress had told me that they were delivered, I was like, oh hey, who wants to buy these carabiners that I just made?
Oh no.
Um, and so I started taking like informal pre-orders for the carabiners I've been making on my mill.
Hmm.
But now I told you 4 of them. I need 5 of them
Hmm.
for the Kickstarter, and I
Hmm.
already have pre-orders for like I would have to go through and count because some people ordered too, but it's like 12 or 14 of these new ones.
Hmm.
And I had, let's see, when I started offering pre-orders, I had materials for 6 of them, and I ordered more materials which are here. So I have enough materials for 12 of them, and I have about 6 of them machined at this point. So
Oh wow. That's that sounds fun.
so it's just been like the actual machining the pry bars for the Kickstarter was super easy. It went super smooth. Like,
Hmm.
but just the stupid carabiners have been such a roller coaster and like delayed everything so much. And
Hmm. So let me ask you a couple of questions. Um,
yeah.
for starters, this question might be something that it would have been if you had realized this sooner, you could implement. It's not something so much you could do now. Um, but do you have any friends or family that purchased pry bars and carabiners
Hmm.
that you could have reached out to and been like, "Hey, there's situations come up. I don't want to bother any of the people that I don't know, but you, as family members, person I know, would you be willing to have me ship this at a later date, or once I get this figured out, I'll make it right with you. But I know you, so I feel comfortable reaching out to you and explaining the situation rather than XYZ person who saw my Kickstarter and I don't want to talk to them because I want them to have a good experience so that they tell their friends and I get good reviews or
Yeah.
whatever.
I don't think any of my well, I know none of my family that ordered a pry bar got a carabiner. Um, there were probably some of my friends that I know through Instagram that did.
But that doesn't really help you right now.
Yeah.
That's just more like if a situation like this ever were to arise. For example, you've pre-sold some of the ones that you didn't get, um, correct? Like you had your order that came in, and you told everyone, and you got a lot of pre-orders for.
Yeah.
Now, are the pre-orders, are they for the Alibaba ones, or are they for the ones that you're going to be making?
No, they're for the ones that I'm milling now. For the pre-orders that I'm taking now, it like I can be another week or two on those and it'll be perfectly fine. Undersell, over deliver is
Yeah,
something I try to do as much as possible. And so I've been telling people like, 2 weeks on these carabiners. I can get the material in 2 days and I can machine them pretty quickly. So like and I told them 2 weeks. So I can make them in time.
gotcha. So your problem is just the people that have ordered through Kickstarter gotten the carabiners as an add-on. Um,
Yes.
Now, how different are these carabiners compared to the ones you're getting on Alibaba? Are they the same design? Did you add your own flair? I haven't seen the ones that you got from Alibaba. I saw your new ones that I think are really cool, but I haven't seen the other ones.
Uh they are um the same intent or they're a little bit different in actual design,
Hmm.
but they are more or less the same form factor. They're the same size. They're a similar use case. It's not like they, bought ones that they expected to go mountain climbing with, and then, you know,
Are
mine
getting
are just
these.
for keychains.
Okay. Um, do you have any qualms with the the few that you got to get out the door, machining them and just being like, "Hey, I've already spent money on express shipping. I've already spent money trying to do the right thing. If I give them something that I machined that at the end of the day it's a higher dollar value, so I'm not they're not getting anything less. In fact, they're getting more than what they originally promised. But for me, I will feel better to my customers knowing that I did that for them rather than leaving them in the wind."
Yeah. I mean, not shipping them any carabiners is definitely the worst case scenario.
Hmm.
And in retrospect, what I would have done now is ship them the pry bars without the carabiners and be like, hey, I'm going to ship you the carabiners when I get them.
Okay.
Um, but I have nothing like I don't think any of them will care if I ship them a different carabiner and explain the story to them. It's one of the reasons why like Kickstarter is very clear that you are not buying a product when you're backing something on Kickstarter. You are backing the company,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And the
um,
the only reason I suggest you do the ones that you are making is because it sounds like you're not getting reliable supplies from Alibaba. You're not getting what you're
yeah,
ordering. It's not coming in. But by the time you go down the rabbit hole of trying to find an alternative, of
yes,
trying to source them, of trying to expedite ship, and of trying to, you're going to have more time, money, energy associated with it for such a low quantity of parts than just biting the bullet, making them nicer ones that are made in your shop, um, and they're kind of like beta testers, I guess, if you want to say it, of your new product. They'll get some of the first, and then hopefully that makes them happy and that makes you feel better. It doesn't feel good because honestly, shipping, like I just went through this with Tormach. Um,
oh really?
yeah, because we were going to get a Tormach Slant Pro 15,
Oh
uh,
yeah,
and I'm not blaming Tormach that they have been having issues with it. My issue is over promise or under promise over deliver,
yep,
and you know it was gonna we ordered it in like November December of last year. It was going to be the end of January, then it was going to be February, and then it was going to ship at the end of March, or it's going to be at our shop by the end of March, or shipped by the end of March, and it hadn't. And then it was going back to April, and it, by the time we finally canceled it, but they canceled it about the same time that they had everything in their warehouse, which I'm
Hmm.
sure they did. But at that point, we were just so frustrated, and we're just like, okay, um, you know, we have the Tormach mill. We love it. Um, but we are ready to, we already seeing some of the limitations that come with it. And we had the ability to consider something that was bigger and hi cat, um, uh, a bigger, better machine that would be harder for us to outgrow. And at that point, we were just kind of like, maybe this is some sort of a sign that says, hey, let's go ahead and up it. That way, we don't end up in the same situation we are with our mill, where we have it for 6 months to a year and we're already outgrowing it.
Yep.
So, hang on, I got this stupid cat that's just off the table. It's my anti-cat water bottle.
Well, so a funny thing about your lathe, I was talking to somebody who was like, "Yeah, I've reserved a Tormach. It's going to be, or I've reserved a Tormach Slant Pro lathe. They say that I'm going to be in the next shipment. It's going to be like 6 months." And I was like, "Yeah, I've heard that story before." Um, and then the next day, right after you told me the story about your lathe and canceling the order, they sent me a message. It was like, "Hey, Tormach just sent me an email, and they had a lathe open up."
That's probably ours.
It's probably your lathe.
Well, hey, I'm glad I made someone's day.
Uh,
Yeah, no, it was. It, I go back and forth on the Tormachs are a great machine for the value and the price that they're at. Um, but there's if you're trying to start a business and get into bigger, more professional environments, this cat is relentless. Um, then um, then you're gonna at some point you're gonna outgrow Tormach and start looking at other things. And
yep.
we're starting to slowly. Well, I say slowly. We started the business, last year. We're getting to that point where we can start looking at some bigger things. And there's some businesses here that we'd like to do some job shop with stuff with, and not having a lathe of the caliber of all the other job shops around here kind of makes them kind of look the other way at us. So we're missing out on opportunities by not having something more capable.
Yep. So do you feel like you're outgrowing your mill? Would you look at upgrading that at some point in the near future?
I would love the opportunity to, and I go back and forth all the time on how much money I would want to spend, and it all depends on how well the business is doing. Obviously,
Yep.
um, I would love to hang on to the Tormach as like I can be very sentimental at times. This is our first machine.
Hmm.
Where you look at companies and they're like, I started this company and I had this old junker car and I was delivering newspapers, for so many years and I built it into this massive empire or whatever. I would love to have the Tormach kind of be like, this is our first mill that we learned how to do everything on, but at the same time, I would kind of be like, we don't have the space, we don't have the money. If I could sell it and upgrade to a nicer machine, man, it'd be very tempting right now.
Yep.
So
And
kind
there's
of.
something to be said where, like, if you don't need the money from selling the mill, selling the Tormach, like having a second spindle for just like
Hmm.
like as a
Oh
tool
yeah,
room machine
yeah.
is
No,
nice, but
for what the Tormach is, it's extremely capable. I'm very impressed with it, especially more so as uh, when we started making these deck defender cases. Um, they were in the very beginning when we did our fixture, we had a lot of issues that we were working through, and we were scrapping a lot of parts. Um, but we made close to 40 in the last 3 days, 3 or 4 days.
wow.
Um, now that we're kind of getting everything smoothed out. So, and they're coming off, excuse me, every time we run them, they're coming off better and better. So my confidence is kind of going back up But I could definitely see how a larger machine. Every morning that we come in from the day before, the whole machine is just covered in chips. Chip
Uh-huh.
management is horrible, and when we got piles like we have 4 55-gallon drums that we filled up in under 2 weeks
Wow.
of just
Okay.
aluminum chips. So we're going to be taking those to recycle tomorrow. So when you start dealing with that volume of chips, looking at a machine that has um, that's a little faster and has chip conveyors and
Yep.
better chip management, it starts to make more and more sense. Um,
So what
so
you're saying is you need a speedio.
I'm saying I would love a Speedio.
Yeah.
um,
for for the work in that area, like I believe you said the major industry is chickens.
yeah, yeah. Locally, job shop stuff. It's chicken industry.
So would you be better off with a like small fast machine like a speedio or something like bigger and slower like a VF4?
Well, here's the deal. Most of the chicken stuff around here is lathe work, so I could
Hmm.
honestly separate it between job shop lathe work and product based mill work. There's
Okay.
very little work that I've been able to find locally that I can't either do on the Tormach already. There's just not much of it, or yeah, I just most of the stuff that's mill work that's local I can fit on the Tormach. It's just the lathe work, having something bigger for all the large shafts is the big issue.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
but
Um.
a Speedio, I drool over those all
Yes.
the time. I've thought about if I had the money, a Haas VF2 or VF3
Hmm.
versus like I really like the idea for the kind of work we're doing on our product based side of like a Speedio or even like a DT2,
Yep.
because that's it's a little more affordable, and um, it's it's not a Speedio, um, but for the size and the capabilities of it, I mean, it's a huge step up from what we're used to. I
Yep.
mean, you're talking
Uh,
2,400 rapids is massive.
the new sill lineup is
Mhm.
looking really nice too.
Yeah, that's if I could do it over again and I knew about them, I would heavily look at them um, versus a Tormach. But then again, here's the catch 22. When you're starting a company or when you don't have much experience, the Tormach
Yes.
is probably the easiest CNC machine under the sun that you can start with. That'll give you the confidence to look at other machines and go, I could do that.
Yep.
So in that respect, the Tormach's, you couldn't replace it for the stepping stone that it is. Um, and in that respect, I mean I love the machine, but I hate it.
Yeah. I'm still at the point where I love mine. Man, compared to all the small machines I had in the past, this thing's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, like it really is, and I actually just went to the college I'm going to be teaching at, um, and they have I didn't did I tell you this that I was going to be teaching a class at
Yeah,
a
yeah.
local. Okay, they have a Haas mini mill, and I've never
Okay.
really used a Haas, and so a week or two ago I got to go out there for the very first time and use it. And I was scared. It's not my machine. I've never touched a Haas, so I was on YouTube trying to figure everything out. And it's not complicated. It's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. But everyone says Haas is easy, anyways. So I
Yeah.
don't know what I was expecting. Um, but it was funny because once I finally got it up and running, it took me a while because when you're setting up a new machine and all the tools and fusion and all that fun stuff, it took about a half a day to even get anything working. But once I did, I had all of the teachers and students like all crowding around the windows, like
Uh-huh.
this thing's working, and they asking all the questions, and they're like, you need to come by more often. We want to see this thing run. So that's an amazing opportunity to at least get a machine that has more power and rigidity than our current machine, and have the ability
Yep.
to play with it without having to go invest in a new machine.
I forgot part of the Carabiner saga.
Oh, let's hear it.
So I'm not gonna do any. I'm not gonna say any details on this. But the other interesting thing that happened with that is a machine tool builder that we all know and love that's not Tormach reached out to me, and they want to buy a license to that part to use as a demo.
Okay,
Um,
interesting.
so yeah, I thought that I was like, oh,
Like
that's nice.
like the carabiners you're saying?
Yes, the
Like,
carabiners.
oh man,
So they want to
that's
license
cool.
the design to use as their demo part and be able to
Hmm.
make it at IMTS and give it away and stuff.
No, I don't even know what that would entail. That sounds like it could be a great opportunity, and it could also, I don't know. That's hmm.
It's a company that I have a kind of informal existing relationship with.
Hmm.
And I'm not giving them exclusive rights. Like I can still make
Make it
them.
so.
I'm probably going to do a Kickstarter for this carabiner just because the reaction's been so good.
Hmm.
Um, so really, it's just how much extra money do I want
Yeah,
to ask them for, and the licensing is pretty simple and easy. But yeah, that
yeah.
was another thing that happened.
That's that's actually really cool. Um, Now, when you're doing this video, are you gonna show the whole process of start to finish? Um,
On the carabiners.
mhm.
So as much as I can and still make it interesting.
Okay.
Um, my I assume you've seen at least some of my videos, my recent
Yeah.
ones.
Hmm. Yeah.
So my theory of videos is show only the interesting parts and only the interesting parts.
Yeah.
And I ruthlessly hack down videos to just the bare minimum that tells the story of what's happening.
Hmm.
Um and I had in this most recent video, I had 20 minutes of explaining my design and talking about CAD and I literally had 20 hours of screen capture from doing the
Hmm.
CAD and the cam. And I used almost none of that. So
Okay.
that's not there, but all of the actually making the fixture stuff is making the fixture, machining the carabiners.
Yeah.
Um
Well, I guess in that case, if someone wanted to license the design from you, it wouldn't. I don't know if there's anything proprietary in there that you would, it's them going out of the way to actually
hmm.
try to help have it licensed from you. If they wanted to have one of their designers look at what you've done, and I've seen. I mean, I've looked at carabiners with flexure designs. I don't know if you remember this, but when we very first started talking through Instagram, you actually asked me about carabiners, and I actually did
Oh,
some
did I?
research. You did. You actually, when we were talking about it, and it was around the time that I quit my job. Because I was looking for opportunities. You're like, hey, if you can make carabiners, I'll buy them and
Oh
sell them.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I actually looked up a lot of carabiner designs from back in the day, um, and Flextures was definitely one of the ones that I looked at. So
Mhm.
they could definitely do a version of it. So in that sense, I'd say it'd probably be a good idea to proceed with that as long as you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, I have absolutely no reason not to.
Yeah,
I mean, it's basically it's money for sunk costs at this point.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
that's just free profits.
it's free profit, and you could also look at it as it's an out for your problem with your Kickstarter people, because that could cover the cost potentially and then some of
Yep.
uh, of making those for them. So
Yep.
that'd be awesome.
It's
Um,
also just cool. Hey, look, machine tool builders making my thing.
yeah, yeah. Um, Now I was curious on your design for how you're holding them on your fixture. When
Mhm.
you're doing op2, are you bolting them down somehow? How are you holding them in
Nope.
op2?
So the original plan on how to hold those was to nest them tightly in a matching pocket and then use super glue to hold them down.
Okay.
Um, and the Op2, the machining in Op2 has very low machining forces.
Okay.
Um, the worst of which are probably my 10 thou chamfer.
Oh wow.
Uh, yeah.
So when you're doing Op2, I noticed at least on the side that I saw, you had a recessed pocket that kind of followed the contour of it. Is that only on one side or is that on both sides? Because you eventually you machine all the way through and turn it into a flexure, but it looks like there's like a little shelf at the very top. Is that shelf on both sides or just one?
Um, do you mean my little slot? Like there's a
Mhm.
decorative slot that goes around? Yeah, that's on
Mhm.
both sides. And I
Oh,
do
that's
do that on the second side.
okay. Because I
Um,
figured that would probably be your heaviest machining.
I don't know. It probably is. I think I'm
And
only
it
taking 10 thou deep passes there though.
oh okay.
So like
And
I'm going really gentle.
and so that's are you doing the super glue method or are you doing something else to hold them in?
So I put my first one in and it fit so tightly that I didn't feel like it was necessary.
Really?
And because I'm using titanium parts in a softer aluminum fixture, I'm expecting that someday my fixture is going to wear in and I'll have to. But right now, I just kind of hammer them in, and
Hmm.
it like getting the first ones out was so difficult. I like it took me probably 45 minutes to get the first two carabiners out of that fixture.
Really?
Um, yeah, I like broke an Allen wrench and like bent up some dental picks and like
Hmm.
um
That's
eventually
wild.
was able to wiggle them out. Um, but I ended up putting in some like little pockets in my fixture that I can now get under there with a screwdriver and pop them out. So
Yeah.
they're in there pretty tight.
That reminds me of a part I did for Xometry, and I wanted to share this part so bad. Like out of everything that I've done for Xometry, this is one of the parts, and it wasn't even that complicated of a part. It was just so cool. I ended up, I think, putting the fixturing that I used to make the part, but not the actual part. Yeah, cat, gotta love it.
Yeah.
Um, um, but it was this really thin flat part that had a lip around the outside edge, and it was thin on both sides of the lip. I
hmm
think the part was kind of like a metal screen for like a speaker. So
Yep.
like someone was doing like a custom speaker and they had a grill for it type part, and it was so thin that I didn't know. This cat's gonna knock the camera off the computer. Anyways, this part was so thin that, and it had this weird lip on it that I didn't know how I was going to hold it for Op 2. And so what I ended up doing was I took a part that I had scrapped previously, and I made a fixture plate out of it and machined a pocket for it to set down into. And then it had a whole bunch of holes in it because it was like a
hmm
speaker grill like thing. And I drilled out this. I put external clamps holding it down, and then I machined out the center, and as I went out I was drilling and tapping holes for screws and working my way
Okay.
out until I could take off the external clamps
Yep.
and finish the outside perimeter. And I had a little pocket in there that I could when it was done that I could stick a screwdriver in and pop it out after
Yep.
I took out all the screws. um, and so fixturing is kind of the fun art to machining
Yep.
as I get more and more into it. I love it. I love it more than I think the actual machining.
Yeah, it's definitely the hard part.
So so how you're holding those was what was really confusing me, and the fact that you're holding them just a friction fit
hmm
kind of blowing my mind a little bit. That's really cool.
Yeah, my original plan was to have like to have some sort of screw in there that I would like put in and then do the outside and remove and move it to the outside of I don't know. Um, but I saw there's a
Stupid
guy on
cat.
Instagram. He's like WRKMN. Work. I always read it as Workman. And I saw him making some parts this way. They're actually a pretty similar part.
Hmm.
But he was just doing. He had like it looks like a cutting board, and he
Hmm.
just he had done 99% of the work with Op One, and then in op 2 it looked like he just like slotted them down into a cutting board. He had like 10 all in a row and then just chamfered the backside. I was like, huh, I could do that.
Now, are you machining your slot all the way through
Yes.
in op one?
Yes. I leave like 4 tabs on, or 6 tabs on the part, and I just knock those off with a with a screwdriver, using it like it's a chisel and the hammer, and just kind of tap them
Mm-hmm.
off. And then they are smaller than the height of the chamfer on the backside. So when it
Gotcha.
chamfers the backside, it cleans off the tabs.
Okay. Because what I was wondering here was, if your fixture starts to loosen up and you need a better way of doing it, if when you flipped it over, if you went ahead and made your fixture to where all of your excess material, you could put some screw holes in it where you could
Mm-hmm.
bolt it down and use those tabs to hold it in place, and then it would break it free on that last chamfering
Yep.
round. You could kind of come up with a fixture like that. I've thought about doing something like that, for a couple of different ideas I've had, and
Yeah.
that could.
And I want to say I've done something similar, but I can't remember on what it was right now. Well, I mean, I guess the pry bars, I was kind of doing that. I just
Yeah,
didn't break all the way through the tabs.
yeah, yeah, and those, because they're parametric, there's not a good way that you could design a fixture to
Nope.
actually fully break off the tabs and have a fully finished product when you're done.
So I'm tempted to make the carabiners parametric for the Kickstarter.
Uh oh.
Um, yeah, and actually they are already. Like my design is parametric.
Can you
Um,
can you do the window machining like you did with your other stuff?
Probably.
Because if you got that method down already, that would be. I mean, you have a pretty good idea of how to do things parametric with that method, and I'm sure you could apply that to the carabiners.
Yeah, I guess there's not a reason not to. Um, I wouldn't be using precision ground stock, which is kind of like a cheat code for window machining, but
It is, but um, if you had a fixture where you knew where the bottom was, and that was
mhm,
your op one, and then when you flipped it over, you knew where your top was, and that was op two, you'd be referencing to the same surface each time, and
yeah,
you could get away with not having precision ground. Um, so for if you're op one, you're bolting everything down. For op two, you have something underneath pushing it up against something. Um, so it's kind of, you'd have to have two different fixtures. Do you have like a pallet system, or are you just
yes,
okay?
yeah.
Because you could,
I may actually change this out in the future, but right now I'm using the Orange Vice 0 point system.
okay, yeah. Because if you had
Um,
something like that, you could potentially uh, make that work. And what you could actually do, um, that could be kind of clever, is if you put like two sliding ramps for your
mhm,
op 2, and you just had a screw on one side that as you pulled it over, it would kind of raise the surface up and lock it against your top surface.
yeah.
Then you don't have to have precision ground stock, and that might be over engineered and way more complex, but I've started down this rabbit hole and I'm going to see it to the end.
uh, the the other thing I could do is there is only really one reason why I need to machine the backside at all, and that's that decorative slot.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess breaking off the tabs. But if I did want to make these parametric, I could just do it, set it, or I could just change my design to do them all in one op and then just grind off the tabs.
Yeah, you could. Could you do a backside chamfer tool and then just leave it
Ooh, I
free,
could.
free floating with tabs? The only thing would be is that your decorative slot, you could do it on one side but not the other. I don't know if an
Yeah,
asymmetrical feature like that could be interesting, but you could backside chamfer it and make that work.
yeah. Or I
Although
could just
you're
tumble it to death.
Yeah, although you're still going to run into the issue where not having precision ground stock could bite you in the butt. for the backside? Now,
Oh, well, you would the backside would always be in the same place because that would be located against your fixture.
I guess that's true, but you wouldn't be able to backside chamfer it at that point, would you? You'd have to. Well, I guess if you had a pocket that you could get down to, and it was actually sitting on a known surface, and you had a pocket where all your machining was going to be done, so you could break through. Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, that could work.
Hmm.
It's a similar idea. I love these uh, mind challenges of trying to figure out how
Yeah,
to hold and do things. Everyone I talk to has a different way of doing something, and I love hearing everyone's approach.
yeah. Well, in parametric products, kind of add a whole nother level to this.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's actually kind of funny. I went through these phases. You first start off machining, and you're like, throw it in a vise, because it's always the easiest. Pretty much no matter what. Like throw it in a vise, do soft jaws, bam, done.
Hmm.
And then I went through a phase where it was like, well, no, 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 high density work holding. Do the J Pearson method. Put everything, a thousand parts on one quick change pallet fixture.
Hmm.
And then I started doing parametric products, and it's like, well, this is easier in a vise again.
And one thing you got to keep in mind is that even though Pearson says high density work holding, he still uses vices even in his
Does he?
process. If you watch his videos, there's still some stuff that he will stick in a vise, and so I think it really depends on the product you're trying to make, how you're trying to machine it. It's kind of like picking out a CNC machine. You don't There's not a one size fits all CNC machine. There's not a one size fits all work holding process.
Yeah.
Sometimes vices are the best way. Have you looked into flex work holding?
Yes, I have.
Because I've really wanted. Speaking of vices, I've thought about some of their stuff because they have some pretty tiny vices, or
Hmm.
not tiny, but like compact, that can do some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah,
And I
I,
think
I like those.
did, I just saw Orange release something that looks almost identical to Flux.
I saw
Did,
that too.
I was wondering if they like ripped off Flux or like how that happened. Like I really want to go ask the guys over there at Flux Work Holding if they've seen that and what their thoughts are.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I thought it was an ad for or an Instagram post from Flux, and then I was
Hmm.
like, oh, it's Orange Vice, and
Yeah. So speaking, going full circle back to your carabiners and them asking you to license, I don't know the
yeah,
story behind Flux and Orange, but
I I hope that's what it is. I mean, like, convergent engineering's a thing, and like the guys over at Orange Vice are good guys. Like they're good
yeah,
people. I don't
yeah,
think they would rip them off. And like there is a existing niche in that market, and like maybe they took different routes to get there.
yeah,
But I like Flux too, and so hopefully it is a licensing deal or something.
yeah. Yeah, I do like Flux. I like their little Vice, and I think I think their um, video they did with Practical Machinist, where they were showing off their brother Speedio
Hmm.
to some extent, was one of the first videos where I actually got a really good shot of the Speedio in
Yeah.
operation. It was like, oh, this thing's so cool. Because like up until that point, I always thought of Brother as like the sewing company. I
Yes.
think. uh,
Yeah. Well, there's a couple companies that are like that. Like Citizens the same way. Like, no, this is a watch company. Oh,
yeah,
they have Swiss lathes.
yeah, yeah. It's it's funny when you find out some of the crossovers that some of these companies have. That's for
Yeah.
sure. I can't tell you what company it was, but I remember hearing something about a company that made jars, and then they also did
Ball.
stuff for like, huh,
Ball.
ball.
Yep, ball jars.
Did you see the same video or something where they also do some crazy or podcast I was listening to? There was something that I recently that
I
I
think
was listening to or watching that talked about them doing stuff for like DARPA or something.
Yeah, so I believe it was in a Within Tolerance episode.
That could be.
Um but the company Ball also that makes the ball jars, which is like the canning jars that everybody uses,
Hmm.
also has an aerospace division, and they made the super cool. Um,
That's what
oh, what are they
flexure.
called?
For the telescope.
Yeah, what are those called? The
Yeah.
actuators. They
Yes.
made these
Yeah.
super cool, super high precision linear actuators that are flexure based for the not Hubble, for the James Webb Space Telescope.
Thank you. That was gonna drive me crazy because all I could think of was like crazy stuff in jars.
Yeah. And I believe that is the same Ball of Ball State, which is based in Muncie. Ball State's a university that is based in Muncie, which is where I live now.
That's kind of funny. That's oh my goodness.
Yeah, because Bell Creek runs through my backyard, and that hits Ball Creek, which is named after those balls, I believe.
Wow. That's every time I talk to someone, the world gets a little smaller.
So, Harrison, where would you like to be found on the internet?
So right now you can find us at Precision Ingenuity on Instagram. That's where we spend most of our time. We also have a website we're working on, precisioningenuity.com. And if you want to reach out to me personally, it's Harrison Hosteter on Instagram. And feel free to reach out on either account, but typically I respond to my stuff on my account, and the main account, me or Weston, will get back in touch with you.
Oh, thanks, buddy. I appreciate you coming on to listen to me babble about carabiners.
Hey, it was a ton of fun. I'm always available.